Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Daf Yud Aleph Amid Aleph. And we saw yesterday things that one could do on Moed and not do in the Moed. Again, we're describing their agriculture, their different things, and we'll continue along those lines, things that you can do on the Moed and not do on the Moed. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Oisa Maika Legag Ulmer Peset. Now, a Maika is a fence to stop someone from falling. Now, a gag is a roof. They used to use their roofs all the time. Again, the area in front of the house was the chutzner. That was a communal property, with the exception like 4 amas in front of an entranceway. The gag was used universally. That was a place where they did a lot of ishtamshus. We were all familiar with this in Masech the Erevin. Their peset was like an aliyah, was like a balcony. Now, let's say you needed a mica to ensure no one would go ahead and fall off. So could you make that on Chol HaMoed or not? Maisa Hedjid, you could make it Maisa Hedjid, but not Maisa Omen. If it's a Maisa Hedjid, you could make it Maisa Omen, you could not. Avaloi Maisa Omen. I will see the Gemara will describe what exactly is the Maisa of a regular Joe and the Maisa of a Omen, an artisan, an expert. Shafin es hasdakin, you can go ahead and fill in cracks. Now, the machloikas, whether it's speaking about cracks in the roof or cracks in an oven. Umagilin oisa, and you could roll it b'ma'agila with a roller. It's that seems to be the type of instrument you would use, a roller, and tsar b'tsar ve'enatach betit. I skipped the line. Excuse me. You can't use a mechotzayim. We'll explain. Hatzir. These are all parts of a door. Hatzir is the pivot of the door. Tzina is the socket. Kaira is the top part of the door. Manul is the lock. Mafteach is the key. Shenishba, they all break. Right? All of these you can fix. Misaktin remoid, you can fix on Chol HaMoed. V'vachli skav nasis malach le'moed, provided it was working before the moed and you move it over to the moed. We're not going to let you go ahead and leave over something to the moed. You have to have it ready. You won't be able to go ahead and leave it over in the moed. And anything food that you can pickle, and when you pickle the food, will be ready to be eaten on the moed that you'll be able to use. So in other words, if you're going to pickle it, but it's only going to be able to be eaten after the moed, then you would not be able to do it. Conversely, if you pickled it and by that you still be able to get the food in Chol HaMoed, that will be fine. Okay, so the Gemara on Daf Yud Aleph Amid Aleph is describing the Mishnah, and it says you can make a ma'aka, you can make some type of fence around the roof or a peset, provided you're limited to being Maisa Hedjit and not Maisa Umin. The Gemara wants to know, Hechi Dami Maisa Hedjit, what exactly is the Maisa of the Hedjit that you would be permitted to do? We had it earlier. You could use palm fronds and different plants to make some type of patchwork. That would be a Maisa Hedjit. You could put rocks there, but you would not go ahead and put cement over the rocks. So we had this earlier as well, the same uptouch of what exactly is Maisa Omin and what Maisa Hedjit is. Shofin says Dakin, Umagil and I soy b'magila. So the Lashon of the Mishnah was interesting. It said you can fix cracks, use a roller, and use your hands and your feet. Now, using your hands and your feet apparently would be more of a shinoi, more of a difference than using a roller. A roller seems to be a very normal way of smoothing over cement. So the Gemara has a problem. If I'm able to use the roller in a normal manner, you have to tell me that you can push it in with your hands and your feet. Why would the chiddush be over there? Fred the Gemara, amit shari biyad shari. You're telling me using a roller would be permitted? Biyadu baregel mi boy. Do you have to tell me that you could do the shinui of using your foot or your hand to fill the plaster in the cracks? Says the Gemara, you're reading it wrong. Really, you can't use a ma'agila. But what could you do? Shofines hastokin umagilin oisa ke'ein ma'agila biyadu beregel. You can go ahead and fill in the cracks using your hands and your feet, similar to the way that you would use a roller, but you would not be able to use the roller. Initially, we thought you could use your roller and in addition, your hands and feet, thus the kasha. No, you can't use a roller. You can use your hand and feet and fill it in, ke'ein the roller, similar to the smoothness of a roller, but you would not be able to use a roller. That would not be permitted on Chol HaMoed. With this implement, this milchatzayim, Rashi says it's an eitz ke'ein regel. It looks like a foot. You push it like recess the cement very much. That you can't use. So again, the way we're touching up the Mishnah, you can't use really any instrument. You could use your hand or your foot to cut cracks, be a roof or a tanner. The Mishnah had said, Hatzir, or different parts of the door, the pivot, the socket, the kaira, the kaira, the lintel over the door, v'amanol, v'amavteach, shenishbru metakim b'moed. Now we said you can be metakim this b'moed. U'riminu, I'm going to ask you a stira. L'chayra, you won't be able to do this. Ad Yomav, until the days of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, hayam patish makav Yerushalayim. The hammer would bang in Yerushalayim, and then they stopped it because it was noisy. Ad Yomav until his days, you could go ahead and use tools in Yerushalayim. But afterwards, it's not. You will not be able to go ahead and use tools. So how in our Mishnah permit you to go ahead and use tools to repair these things in our Mishnah? It says Kasha. Rabbi Yochanan was speaking about the blacksmith's hammer, which made an incredible amount of noise. Nagri, where we're discussing the fixing of the door, which was a carpenter's tools, they made less noise. So, in other words, if you can make a lot of noise, it's going to be people going to see you doing a malacha on the Moed. If it doesn't make so much noise, people will not be aware of it. So, if it's a we want to make a distinction between the noise of a blacksmith's hammer to the noise of a carpenter. And therefore, that would be the difference. We allowed the carpenter, we were not allowed the blacksmith's hammer. We're going to have a few akasha on this, and then a few other terutzim to explain the discrepancy of Rabbi Yochanan's, how we could do work despite Rabbi Yochanan's takana. Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Maskal Rav Chisda. Yomru kol rabba asa, kol zut shari. The people are going to say, a loud sound is asa, but a small sound is mutta. Now, really, it isn't mutta. Really, bemis, it's not mutta, small sound. No sound is mutta. But people make this distinction when you're making the distinction between a carpenter's sound and a blacksmith sound. So, Ella Lashon Charata, back to the original question, how do you explain the ability to use tools in our Mishnah where Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol said you can't? Elam Rav Chisda le kasha, ha b'magole, right? Ha b'chatzini. The Mishnah, I'm speaking where you're using a saw. The sound of a saw is nothing, it's negligible. But the chatzini, if you're going to use an axe, so we're speaking about both implements that are used for wood. One is an axe. In other words, initially we said it's an artisan's distinction of a smith to a carpenter, where we said you're going to make a distinction between one or the other. One loud is usher, low is permitted. Now we're making a distinction within the carpenter himself. If he's using a saw, which whatever saw makes very little noise, but the chatzini is a larger noise. But Papa says, kan koidim gezerah, kan lacha gezerah. Our Mishnah is speaking before the gezerah and after the gezerah you can't. So two terutzim so far to explain how in our Mishnah we allow tools. One, our Mishnah is speaking about a saw. Rabbi Yochanan was speaking about an axe. A second teretz, our Mishnah is speaking before the takana of Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol, and his gezerah is speaking afterwards. So after later Papa, no tools would be able to use. Period. Rashi gives a third teretz, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi. Right, we're going to see that the Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol, the Tana of Rabbi Yochanan Gadol who wrote that Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, who says that what for a davar ovid you need a shinoi. And her Rabbi Yossi, our Mishnah that permitted to go ahead and use tools is Rabbi Yossi. Guys, we didn't meet them yet. We're going to meet them tomorrow. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi. Machloikis is by a davar ovid, when it's the permission by something that you're going to take a monetary loss, that you can go ahead and do the avodah and fix it on Chol Moed. Do you require a shinoi, a change, or you can do it kedarkai in a normal way? Rabbi Yossi says you can do it kedarkai. Rabbi Yehuda says what? You can have to do it in an abnormal way. So the Mishnah of Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol, that's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. You have to do it what? In an abnormal way to stop. And Mashenkin, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, so therefore it's machloikas tanoim, and therefore it's not shver the stira that was presented. Then Rabbi Yitzchak Rav Dimi, man Tana shinu b'moyed b'dava. But who's the Tana that what a shinu b'dava of it is permitted? It's like Rabbi Yossi. It's not like Rabbi Yossi because you don't need a shinu according to him. Amarava Kiman Madlino Idna Kavyusa the Dasha B'Chayla the Moed. Who's according to who that Bisman Azeh can we put the lintel of the door back into place in the usual way without a shinoi? Is Kiman is Rabbi Yossi. It's like Rabbi Yossi. So we had a stira, just to recap, we had a stira. We're using tools in our Mishnah, and according to Gezerah, Yochanan, and Kohen Gadol, we wanted to first make a distinction between a blacksmith and a carpenter. We rejected that because people mistakenly might think that making noise is okay as long as it's a soft noise. We then went to the carpenters and said the one that is the noise is totally muffled like a saw, that will be permitted. Rabbi Yochanan said was speaking about an axe. We had Rav Papa going ahead and saying before the Gezerah, after the Gezerah. Amish is speaking before the Gezerah, and therefore you won't be able to use any tools at all. Finally, Rav Ashi says no, it's a machlokes tanoim. Amish is according to Rabbi Yossi. You could do anything you want in a normal way by a dover of it, provided you're going to take a loss. And Rabbi Yochanan and the Takan Rabbi Yochanan ben Kohen Gadol was according to Rabbi Yehuda that requires a shinoi by a dover of it. The last part of the Mishnah was what? That if you have pickled stuff that you're able to pickle right on the moed, you go as long again. This is the tzarich moed. If I can eat it during the moed, then you're able to pickle it. And if I can't eat it during the moed, then I won't be able to pickle it. But disa levai kavre. One chalam moed, they had a river. It was called Bedisa. It overflowed, and the fish were flapping all around. And a lot of fish. So also Kuli Alma, everyone went and Sud Isa Kaveri. When they caught fish, they brought the fish back. Shayul Rava permitted them. Lamimlach Menayu, he said you can go ahead and put them in salt, right? He knows salt is going to preserve it, right? Right? Even though what? They're not for the yontif. You have so much fish, it's not for yontif. So this apparently will be in contradiction to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says only what's necessary for the moyed. Why did Rava go ahead and allow them to go ahead and salt all the fish? So Amalei Abaya, the kasha we just asked about Tanan, something that can be pickled before the moyed that you're able to do. So Amalei, Rava said, when they brought the fish home, they wanted to eat them. And that you could do. But if they're going to leave them, it's going to take a loss. So Rakmacha, it's like pragmatia, like merchandise of it, dami vishari. We know that if you have a deal, we spoke at yesterday, right? If the deal is going to be there now, it's not going to be there afterwards, it's a loss. You're able to go ahead and do the deal. So to over here, you have in front of you, you didn't go out to catch all of them to make, you went, it was permitted to take them home, you took them home. Now they're going to be lost, so you're able to go ahead and pickle them to keep them. The others say, Shari Lahu Rava Meitzad Mezel Eisen Lamach. This is even a bigger chiddush. He said you can go catch fish, even if they're in overflow. He said go catch fish, right, and bring them home. So Amalei Abaya. No, the first one they were just picking it up from the river. Here it's a dried out river, they're catching them. So Amalei Abaya. How could you catch more? So Amalei Hani Nami Misachle Agavitza. These fish, you could eat them. Even though they're salty, you could go ahead, soak them or press them and get the salt out and then eat them. Ki Shmuel, of the Leishisin Itzaseva Achal. He made 60 soakings or pressings of fish and he ate them. So in other words, right now it's worthy to be eaten. So therefore, it's like yesh v'yesh. You salt them, you keep them that way, they'll stay. If you want to eat them now, you can eat them now. So it's considered what? Davar Achila. Ikla Lebei Reish Galusa. Rava Iklo Lebeis Reish Galusa. Rava came to the house of the Reish Galusa. Of the Leishisin Itztiv Achal, they made him these 60 types of fish, pressing the fish. Right. So that's again a riot to the sugya here. Rav Iklo Lebei Rav Shafir. Rav came to the house of Rav Shafir. Eisen Kamayu Ahu Chavra. They brought a certain fish in front of him, and this fish Tilsha Bishula, a third of it was cooked. Tilsa Milcha, a third of it was salted. Tilsa Tavya, and a third of it was broiled. This is a whole sugya about fish. This is for those of you who like fish. Yeah, Avrami Weinberg, this is your sugya, Avrami. Yeah, you remember it. Yud Aleph in Moed Katan. Amar Rav. Amali Adad Sayada. Ada the fisherman told Rav, a few things about eating fish. First one, Avram Yomi Moed. You know when a fish tastes best? Closest to it becoming bad. When you buy it fresh, that's not good. You have to wait a little bit, right before it spoils. That's the best time to eat fish, Avram Yomi. The Amarava, Amali Adat Sayada, the Ada that fisherman told me, Kavra Tavya Ba'achua, the healthiest way to eat fish is to broil it in its brother. You know what the brother of the fish is? Salt. The fish go in the salt water, right? So the brother of the fish is salt. So the best way is to boil it in its salt. As askuke ba'avua, then put it what? In its father. I mean, put it in water. He's giving you recipes. Michle bebrei, then eat it with its son. Dip the fish in wine sauce, not wine sauce. That's what I eat. Herring and wine sauce. Dip it in fish broth. That son that comes from it, and then ishte ala avua, and then drink afterwards its father, its water. Okay, from you take notes. Next, v'amarav amuli avet sayada kavra tachle chalava, fish, cress, and milk, litlain gufa, v'lay litlain puria. Do some activity after you eat it, but don't go ahead and lie down in your bed. This stuff will lay there a while. V'amarav amuli adet sayada kavra tachle v'chalava, fish and cress and milk, moya v'lay shechra. You should drink water and not beer. However, if you don't have water, shechra, drink beer v'lay chamra, and do not drink wine. Okay, next parak also continues on the things that you're able to do Chol Moed. It introduces an idea of Avelis. We're going to get into the sugya of Avelis later on in the Masechta. 2 parts of the Masechta, Chol Moed, and the halachas of Avelis. So let's say a person is preparing his vat. It seems in the process of olives, they would go ahead, they would put it in a keli, and it would wait until it gets softened and warm, and the skin got very soft, and it's ready to be pressed. And they would turn it over. Once you turn it over, you got to put the beam on top of it to press it. So what happened was he turns it over. Before he got a chance to put the beam on top of it, he became an oval. Okay, so here that's the backdrop over here. Misha hafach zaysav. He turned over his zaysim. He turned over his olives. The iru oval. He became an oval. Oy oynis, or some other unseen circumstance occurred. Oy shetu poilim, or the workers who were supposed to come, they tricked him. What can he do? Tayin kaira rishayna. He could place the first beam on it because it's a davar avud. Umeiniach la'achar hamayed, and leave the rest till after the mayed. Right? And leaves it there. He leaves the beam till after the mayed. Diva Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara wants to be medayik, fellas, that this din was only a din in the mayed din. In other words, we began saying what? The din of aval. Then we said oynis, and that din of oynis is speaking on the mayed. That's speaking on the regel. So you began with one din, and my finger, that's the din of avelis. You then went to oynis, then went to the tricking, and that was speaking on the regel. So it said on the regel, you have the option of taking one beam and putting it there. Mashma, when it comes to avelis, you did not even have that option. Again, very meduyik the way to learn the Mishnah, guys. There's three separate cases, 2 of the same sug, of the same branch. One is the din of avelis. 2, it's speaking that you're an oynis or your workers trick you, and that's speaking beregel on Chol Moed. And then the Mishnah said, what do? You put down one thing and leave it there for the regel. Mashma by the morning, by avelis, you can do anything. The Gemara is going to make that distinction. So Nachama Misha bechazesa bi'eru aval ayaynes ayshetu pailim tayin kayer rishayna umeniach la'achar mayed. The Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yomer Zoylif v'goymer b'kaf kedarka. So he says you don't have to go ahead and leave it there. You go ahead and finish the job. You squeeze out all your olives, right, and then you go ahead and you pour it into barrels, and you go ahead and cork them. You do what you're supposed to do. You do what you're supposed to do. That's Rabbi Yossi's shita. Rabbi Yossi's shita is that what you do things kedarka. Okay, Fred Gemara Kash. Pasach ba'aval. You began ba'aval v'sayin b'moyed. right? As I pointed out, you began and you indeed you said that what? It's two separate dinim. Some Rav Shisha B'Reid Ravidi Zoisei Neres. What do we see from here? The Vorm Hamutarim B'Moed Asurim B'Me'avelo. The things that you're permitted to do on Chol Hamoed, such as putting a beam on the softened olives to produce oil, would only be permitted on the Moed. This would not be permitted if you're an oval. If you're an oval, you cannot do it. Rav Ashi says, no. Rav Ashi learns differently. Loimi boy, come on. Mishas tell me you don't need to tell me. Loimi boy, b'mei aveloi, dim rabbanan v'shari. Of course, b'mei aveloi. Avelis is all the rabbanan. So if you have a dover or avod, by an issa de rabbanan, we would allow you to go ahead and put the beam on top of the softened olives. Elafilu b'moyed, the issa malacha midaraisa, but on the moyed, where the issa malacha is the raisa, we saw earlier, the shita that it's the raisa, right? Yom Hashvi, 6 days of Pesach, of Yom Hashvi. So it's asad. The issa malacha is the raisa. The makam pseida shari, right? Certainly the makam pseida is permitted. Permitted rabbanan. So lo mi boy, guys. So look, 2 ways to learn. Rav Bibi learned that it's asar. Rav Shisha B'Reid Rav Idi learned it's asar. Rav Ashi's learning it's muta. Rav Shisha's raya was you had the case of Avelis, and you only said the heter of on the moyed you can put on the beam. That was, and Rav Ashi is saying loy mi boy kamar. You don't need to tell me. You don't need to tell me. In other words, if it's the rabbanan, if it's the raisa, you're able to go ahead and do it. The rabbanan certainly you can do it. The isra of Chol Hamoed is the raisa, and you're able to put the beam on. Loy mi boy that you could also do it by Avelis because it's all the rabbanan. So they're disagreeing by Avelis whether it's permitted. We're going to bring a raya now to the shita of Rav Shisha, B'Reid Rav Idi, that it's not permitted to do the Avelis. So says the Gemara, Ela filu moed asa or not. Tani kabasi Rav Shisha B'Reid Rav Idi, that by Avelis it's asa. Elu devarim hasam la'avel b'mei avelo. These are the things that can be done. These can be done for the avel in the days of Avelis. Mashma that the others have to do it for him. Zeisef afuchim. This is what we need. If his zeisim they're turned over. In other words, they're softened and they're turned over, ready for production. Toin and loy, you're able to go ahead and put the beam on them. V'kadoy lakuf, and if his kad is ready, you can go ahead and stuff it. Upishtone lahalis min mishra. If he was soaking flax, you could take it up from the mishra. Bitsimroi lahalis min hayira, or wool garment that was being dyed, you could take it up from the pot filled with dye. Umar bitzim sadeyu, you'll be able to water his field. We saw marbitzim is not a mashke, full water, but it's a little water. Mishitagia oinos hamayim. When it reached the time of what? Of watering, shaloi. So somebody else is doing it for him. So again, somebody else is doing for him. So clearly, this is the opinion. This is the shita of Rav Yossi, Rav Shisha Rav Idi, who says that he would not be able to do it. He would not be able to do it. Near, he can even plant a field that is plowed. The sada imedas the pishtan, or a field if is standing for the purpose of preparing flax, and if you don't do it now, you're going to lose it. So Amruloi, they told Rabbi Yehuda, in loy sisra b'bechir, if you don't go ahead and plant it in the young season, tisra ba'afel, you'll plant it later on. And like tisra pishtan, and if you don't plant pishtan, tisra b'minachi, you'll plant something else. But again, according to this, you would not be allowed to plant. If the zayis that turned over and he's the only game in town, kada logo of ancient amahu, you have to close the barrel and he's the only game in town. Pishtone lahalis min mishra, but samar lahalis min yoira, flax to take out of the where it's soaking and to take the wool out of the pot. Ancient umin elahu, harizeh yaseh b'tzina. He should do it privately. So a dover of it, according to Rav Shimon, by an oval, privately be able to do it. And here's even a bigger chiddush. Yes, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. This person was the expert. Safran, he was the expert barber. Ubalan, he was the expert bathhouse attendant. The rabbin. He's the only guy. It's considered a dava ovid and tzarech hamayid, and therefore he will be able to do it b'mayid. So therefore, you have a l'chayir raya that avelis would not be permitted by a dava ovid. Somebody else have to do it for you. Okay, we're going to stop over here.